You're listening to Podium Podcast with former England rugby player Tom May and leading performance coach Simon Hartley. From locker room gossip to fascinating high-performance insights, this is the show that invites some of the biggest names in the world of sport to discuss life on and off the field of play. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential. To find out more, visit www.tpllp.com.
Justin, hello, mate. Justin, not Tom.
Indeed, my hair's probably slightly better than Tom's, just a little bit.
It's definitely less than Tom's.
I mean, horrifying to think that if I was able to grow this, which I can't, it would also be grey. So I can probably meet Tom on those grounds as well. So Tom is got family responsibilities. So I am coming from. Normally my normal place behind the screen doing editing work to have a chat with the lovely you about season 2 and what's coming up in season 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of our listeners will have heard your name, because normally when Tom's moaning about the 4 questions at the end, and then we can blame you for writing them. So it's
I can't
a nice chance to actually have a chat with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, and he knows that I can't respond to those things. I've got to sit silently on my hands without any right to respond. So this is, I should probably have built up those responses for this opportunity, but no, I'll take it very easily. The point of this, isn't it, is a bit of a recap of season 2. We've got season 3 launching in a couple of weeks. Got some great guests coming on. We can tell you a bit more about them in a moment. But what were your highlights for you in season 2? So we had 12 cracking guests. Really pleased to get some of the names on that we did have. Yeah, I'm almost reluctant to pick out any names if you like, saying they were all great. But were there any particular highlights for you in the season?
Well, there were a few things that I noticed. Almost all of our guests in season 2 talked about. One of them was, many people call this finding their passion. I'm not sure it's something that you find, but they were talking about the importance of passion, having a new passion beyond their sport. And it was really interesting. I mean, people like Jody Craddock, obviously Jody found art and became really passionate about art, and therefore taught himself to become an artist, and that paved his way to a career beyond sport. But what I was thinking about how others discovered their passions as well. And really interestingly, some of it comes from the struggles and challenges they had within their sport. Jack Green being a prime example of somebody who's used his experiences in sport, maybe not the positive experiences, because, he has openly talked about his mental health challenges, but he's used that actually as a focal point for growing a passion, which has now allowed him to have a real impact as well in his post-sporting career. Yeah,
true of Ryan Veske as well, isn't it? From hockey, from NHL, he suffered a lot of rehabilitation injuries, and he set a Matterhorn clinic. So I think certainly there's definitely a trend, isn't there? And understandably, that perhaps what you do in your professional playing career feeds through into what they're doing after they've retired.
Yeah, I remember Joe Van Niekerk talking about how he just learnt about the power of kind of being out in nature, because he describes it very much as healing. It's helped his healing process, and because he understands how it's helped him to heal. And again, not just physically. I mean, yes, your body does get battered around playing rugby, but he's talking about more holistic healing than that. And it's through his learning that he's become really passionate about taking people out into nature and giving them an experience which will allow them to heal on all sorts of different levels.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but love and smile and laugh at the episode with Joe Van Niekerk. Joe is such an infectious character, and I think I probably consider myself a bit of a corporate hippie. So I think there was definitely a lot of calculation around Joe's move to Costa Rica and what he was doing. I think he was clearly thinking about this stuff in his playing career, as Tom alluded to. Tom obviously played alongside him, and there was definitely method in what he did with what he's doing with his retreat in Costa Rica. But there's also a real lovely free spirit about Joe that you perhaps don't always see in professional athletes. That's actually one of the beautiful things I think about season 2. there was some, quite a diverse mix of people in the mix. And, you go from someone like Joe to Kath Bishop, Olympic world champion rower, incredible character and clearly very intelligent, very, very sharp. She's worked in international diplomacy, so she's clearly got quite a well-engineered mind in there. And that came through in the conversation. She had some incredible insights.
Yeah, she did. And again, actually going back to passion, she developed a real passion for understanding teams and teamwork through her rowing career, through her experiences as a rower, and has been able to take that out. Because Kath understands, one of those things that I've learned over the years is that team working in a boat isn't very much different from team working in an office environment, in a corporate environment. Or even education or healthcare, wherever you want to take it. The essence of team working is the same. And I detected that she'd developed a real curiosity around how you develop great teams from her time in the boat, which she now helps people outside of sport to benefit from. Mike Brown actually talked about something very, very similar, because he's looking at how organizations perform, using his insights, I guess, as to how some organizations that he's been part of have been the very, very best in their game, and others with the same base ingredients have been mediocre at best. He started to learn those real, maybe subtle but very profound differences between the two, and that's fueled his passion for wanting to go into the field of high performance, and work as a high performance and sporting director. So it's really interesting to see how those have developed. There are some sort of more classic examples, I guess. I mean, Chris Cook, I know, he was an Olympic swimmer and a double Olympian. He's always had a passion for helping kids learn to swim, because I know it's something that he just sees as really important in society, that kids should be able to learn to swim. So he's got a real passion around that. But actually his mentoring work, I think, also stems from his experiences as an athlete, and how, particularly he's learned about how to overcome challenges, how to develop his character, and he realizes how powerful those have been for him. So he wants to be able to help others on the same basis.
I found Chris really interesting, actually. I think you'll have more insight on this with your career, what you've done in your work, and in terms of working with athletes for decades. And I've had some experience there. But not as much as yourself. But Chris's insight was really interesting. I think a lot of people who listen to Podium, or a lot of people externally looking at high performing athletes, they might think that the transition process is really easy for them. Perhaps in some way impacted by looking at footballers who have loads of money and can just move into almost a comfortable retirement. And that really isn't the case for the majority, is it? And I think Chris really highlighted that perfectly. I think it's pretty reflected in a lot of the comments made by the other guests as well, that it's just not that easy, whether we're talking about imposter syndrome or finding your next passion, whatever it might be. It's just not that easy, is it, to stop playing it at such a high level, then suddenly find another purpose in life. It's really quite a challenge.
It really is, yeah, because it's not just something to occupy them or something to pay the bills. What they're looking for is something that means something to them. And something that they can become passionate about. This is where I don't think necessarily the word find is right when we're talking about passion. I don't think, people imagine you sort of stumble across it, but actually I consider that you grow passion. I talk about it often like a fire, and that there are little sparks of things you could become passionate about, but until you start turning that spark into a flame by feeding it with fuel, it's not going to grow. And that when we start feeding it and growing our passion, then it's something that we can become really passionate about. I remember talking to Chris actually whilst he was a competitive swimmer, and I said to him, if you ever want to become a sports psychologist, you could become really good at this. And it was really sort of an understanding of how he'd developed as a person. He had that innate understanding, that very personal experience of having developed, and therefore he knew what it took, both on a performance and a personal level, because he wasn't a talented athlete particularly. He describes himself as being fifth best in his swimming group when he was young, and there were only 5 of them in it. But he went on to become a double Olympian because he learned the path, but he also learned how to develop himself along the path. And therefore, you kind of see how that allows somebody to develop some knowledge, some skills, but also a real interest, a deep interest about personal development and therefore how to go and help others develop.
It's a great story with Chris, isn't it? I mean, we'll start on Chris's story here a bit for quite a few minutes here, but that the whole idea of Chris, by his own admission, not being particularly blessed, and yet there he is featuring in an Olympic final alongside Michael Phelps. I mean, that is a staggering achievement for someone who, wasn't top of the game, even by local, national standard, by county standards, but managed to find a way to extract every inch that he possibly could. And he finds himself in one of the most iconic Olympic finals, not just swimming, Olympic finals that there's been. Quite an incredible story, really.
We hope you don't mind us interrupting the show with a very short message about our partners at the Podium podcast, True Potential. True Potential provide wealth management that's simple, effective and unique. Their expert advice, innovative investments, leading technology and dedicated support are all designed to help you do more with your money. Visit www.tpllp.com now to find out more. Capital at risk. True Potential Wealth Management and True Potential Investments are authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Thanks for listening. Now, let's get you back to this week's show.
And I think there's incredible stories across the board, with the last season. Some really, really interesting stuff. Can you pick a highlight guess? Do we do this? Do we pick out a highlight guess? That's not fair, is it?
Yeah, no, I think they've all got highlights for different reasons. I also noticed that quite a few of them started to tap into the real fundamentals of performance. What drives performance, and there are some elements of the conversation, some comments that they made that really do stand out. I mean, Mike talking about how, vision, purpose and strategy are words that are commonly used, but he's worked in all sorts of environments, quote unquote, high performance environments, Premiership and international rugby. And yet actually they're rare. When you do see them, when they actually come together, that team often goes on and wins a title. Mm-hmm. But even though people know these things are important, they still don't get them right often. That was really insightful. Kath talking, in similar ways about teamwork. But one of those, it almost sounds like a kind of a throwaway comment that disappears into the background with these sorts of conversations, but really hit a chord with me was Kenny talking about the importance of fun and happiness in the environment, because it reminded me of, you and I have both spent time with the Fiji Sevens team. It's absolutely fundamental to their performance. They put it front and center, the need for happiness and laughter and fun. And yet I'm thinking about most Western cultures that I've seen, whether they're sporting cultures, business cultures, whatever, fun and happiness sort of, it's like it's in the second division somewhere in terms of importance. Behind KPIs, behind targets and goals, all those sorts of things that are front and center, the need for fun and happiness disappears into the background. And yet the Wasps team that he was a part of really understood the need for the players to bond, to get to know each other, properly get to know each other, to form those bonds that allow you to build, high levels of team working, but also that you spend a lot of your life working. So this should be fun as well. And if you want to get the best out of human beings, having an environment that's fun,
of course,
it's critical.
There's things at stake here, clearly, with professional sport. There's money involved, which always change the dynamics a little bit. But sport fundamentally is about having fun. Look, we're going to open a can of worms here potentially, but we touched on this last in the season one with Paul Sculthorpe, didn't we? We talked briefly, Paul Sculthorpe from Rugby League, and it was about the importance of. Actually, his angle was very much about winning, wasn't it? It actually was about winning, about the seriousness of performance, but it was also about having fun, making sure that your sport is based around a love and a passion. And coming back full circle to what we just talked about, but having fun is absolutely critical. And I think that is sometimes forgotten in the world of sport as big corporates become involved, or the pressure a need for success is such that it can sometimes, I guess, take away the roots to the foundations of why you got involved in the first place.
Yeah, which actually leads me on to another sort of real highlight conversation. We talked with Kath and with Jack actually about understanding what success really looks like, understanding it beyond the medal, beyond the goal, beyond the trophy. What really constitutes success? Why is winning important? What's behind winning? And this is, I think, linked in with understanding your passion and really understanding what drives performance. If we don't really understand success, then we might pick up a trophy, but actually it's kind of an empty success.
Yeah.
We don't feel fulfilled. And one of Kath's real insights, I think, is understanding from her own experiences of winning a silver medal and looking at the gold medalists thinking, well, they must have achieved all their dreams. They must be entirely fulfilled now because they picked up a gold medal. And actually, when she went and asked them, that was not the case. Many of them were saying, great, well, I got a gold medal, but I thought it would be different. I thought I'd feel different. I thought that all my dreams would have come true, and they haven't. And so it really gets you to question what do we mean by success? Why do we put winning up on a pedestal? What is it that we're really after? And whether it's, again, in sport, corporate, wherever it is, we need to be able to answer these questions, or else all we'll do is we'll sort of hunt down goals, and it'll be this vacuous existence where, we tick off another goal, but we're still desperately hungry. And we chase another goal thinking that will satisfy us, and it doesn't.
These are deep questions. These are meaning of life questions. So.
There we go. I know. But these are the things for me that we could skirt over them, but these are the things I think that provide us with a real value in these conversations.
Yeah, no, completely agree. So listen, we've brought season 2 to an end, to a wrap. Great fun. We've got season 3 started. We've actually done some of the records already, a couple of them. We've got a boatload lined up, launching in a couple of weeks. Excited for season 3?
Very much, yeah, because I think we're going to explore some new territory with the guests that we've got. There are some people that have made very, very different moves from their sporting life into their post-sporting life, and some that have taken on some real challenges in the process. So, I'm really interested to know not only how they became great in their sporting life, but how they've taken that mindset to into their post-sporting life and use that to overcome the challenges that have come their way, but also to explore a little bit of, again, some of the stuff we picked up in season 2, how the landscape probably isn't the way that they perceived it when they were in their sporting lives, and how they've come across some of the challenges they maybe weren't expecting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I was going to perhaps list a few of the names that we've got coming up, but just in case they cancel on us, which is always a potential that happens, I'm not going to list them, except to say that we do have the how do I describe them? The holder of perhaps World Rugby's most iconic goose step. Would that give enough of a clue? Is that enough of a giveaway?
It might well do for people of a certain age. People that can remember back that far.
That is the thing, isn't it? It's for people of a certain age, but I think we'll put a few clips up around that name, and hopefully it'll remind some people. But yeah, look, I think for this season for me, and we're constantly trying to. We're very conscious that we've had a certain type of guest on Podium Podcast, but we're always trying to be a bit more diverse, and not just because we want to tick boxes, because we're generally interested in different sports, different types of people from different backgrounds, just to get a really rounded understanding of how this transition process impacts and affects different people from different backgrounds. So I think that's one of our missions for this year, and this season. Hopefully, we're going to achieve that with some of the names and people we've got coming on. So really looking forward to it. I think that's probably enough of me. We'll try and get Tom back in for the next conversation. Any other final thoughts, Si, before we sign off?
No, I mean, I've really genuinely enjoyed the conversations that we've had in season 2. I'm very much looking forward to season 3's. I've spoken, as you can imagine, to quite a few people who have tuned in and listened to the Podium podcast, and they've taken all sorts of different elements of value out of it, just understanding what drives performance, understanding how you can translate a performance mindset. But also, I've noticed lots of people have transitions of their own in life, not maybe from sport to business, but they've got transitions from one part of life to another. And they're always challenging periods of life. And I think there's so much to be learned from these conversations that can help us in our own lives. So I'm really looking forward to unlocking some of those and sharing them.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Tune in, everyone. We shall be putting promos out as soon as we can on who we've got coming up. Thanks, Si. I'll speak to you very soon.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Podium Podcast with former England rugby player Tom May and leading performance coach Simon Hartley. From locker room gossip to fascinating high-performance insights, this is the show that invites some of the biggest names in the world of sport to discuss life on and off the field of play. Podium Podcast is brought to you by True Potential. To find out more, visit www.tpllp.com.